the difference between China and the West, I think number one is dating in China, you get parents, family, friends, relatives involved, whereas in the West, you don't see that. So, for example, you see this is quite evident in the marriage matchmaking corner in some of the urban places like Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen. That's number one. Basically, it's a very collective effort, a collective activity. And number two, I think the difference would be different values. For example, in relationship, a kiss in China could be meaning commitment, whereas in the West is casual, and more closer, intimate relationship in China means long-term commitment and marriage. But in the West, is different perception there. And the third one, I think, in terms of sex, in China, there's a volume of sex education. So a lot of people are not aware of sex, and so they do not have sufficient knowledge about it. Whereas in the West, it's completely different. So when you see Chinese and the Westerners, they are forming an intimate relationship, there tend to be problems, and that can trace back to the cultural differences and traditions, values, etc.
Wow, there's really a lot to discuss there. But let's focus back onto China, and I know there's a lot of history to cover over the recent decades. How have the way men and women courted evolved over the years, and how has globalization changed that?
Right. I think I would like to outline 4 big stages in China to show you the changes of the dating scene in China. Think before 1950, arranged marriage were very prevalent, but in 1950, China gets the first marriage law, and that guaranteed freedom of love and marriage, and banned forced marriage, child marriage, mercenary marriage, and promoting monogamy, women and men shared equal status. That's being guaranteed by law along with the Constitution. That's number one. And number two, we know in 1960s to 1970s, that is the Cultural Revolution era. That time, marriage and dating were very political, so everything is oriented towards revolution. So every day it's been dominated by class struggle and political ideologies. So that time is very politically oriented, and class endogamy was a very distinct feature that time. That means people with the same class marry each other, peasants marry peasants, workers marry workers, and those who had bad elements, meaning capitalist, rich landlords, were struggling to find a date, to find a proper partner to marry.
Okay, and just quite briefly, we'll just have to go through stages 3 and 4. Yes.
Yeah. 3 is 1990s, and 1980s. That's after China's economic reform. You see, Chinese people started to embrace Western ideas, neoliberal ideas. So you started to see individualized, equalized values started to be embraced by Chinese. And the 4th stage is the 2000s, the new millennium till now. What you see is you start to see digital dating, even online, people using social media,
and apps,
all kinds of practice.
Yes, I understand they would use apps as well, as they do here a lot
dating
too.
Apps.
How do popular Chinese dating programs such as If You Are the One kind of demonstrate the changing dynamics between men and women?
Right. I think the show, on the one hand, you really see the empowerment of women, because you can tell from the way they dress, the way they talk, and the makeup they wear, and together with music, with everything, the whole package, commercialized image, and you see women really empowered by such package to showing and displaying their feminine beauty. And I see this is very liberating and very empowering in a way. However, on the other hand, you see women are, well, both men and women, but they are there waiting for men to pick up. So in that way, it is the opposite. So therefore you see some people are saying the show, although you see there's gender inequality, there is freedom of love, and freedom of dating, freedom of expression there on the show, yet on the other hand, you see it's still quite traditional in a way.
Yeah. And given that there are so many more men than women in China, do you find men are under more pressure to find a partner than women are?
I think definitely this is true. Because of the one-child policy, starting from 1979 to 2015, that resulted in imbalanced gender ratio. You see a lot of males, males largely outnumber females, and by the year 2020, you see more than 30 million more single men than women. But mostly these men are resided in the rural area in China, right, if you call that lower end, whereas the leftover women, if you want to point that one too, they are residing in the urban area, the higher end. What I'm calling that is, you see those women, leftover women, they are highly educated, they are career oriented, they have stronger economic power, whereas on the other hand, you see men in the rural area, they having less education, they are poorer, so you see this unbalanced scale there. Okay. That's why you start to see the disparity between that one.
That's very interesting to hear. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us tonight, Dr. Wang.
No problem. Thank you.